Hello artists, and welcome back to art class. This is part 2 of our landscape drawing where we are going to color it. So as you can see, I have the landscape that we all drew together last time, and I am going to be using some crayons to color mine just because mine is larger and on chart paper. If you are using yours on a smaller piece of paper, I would recommend again, you could use crayon, you could use colored pencil. You want to use something that's going to blend, so I would not use marker if I were you because markers can't really blend. So, since it is a fall landscape, I'm actually going to start off with my trees. Now, when we drew our landscape, we talked about how the tree in the foreground, which is this big guy over here, is going to have a lot more detail and is going to pop out a lot more. And then my ones in the middle ground and the background are going to have the same colors, but less detail. So when I'm coloring my tree here, I'm going to color my branches in brown. I'm actually coloring lightly because I'm going to take my brown crayon when I'm done with that, and I am going to trace over all of those swirls in the bark that I created when I drew it so that I can see the texture on my tree. So once I color it in neat, and you want to color in neatly, okay? Move with the shape of the object. You can see I keep changing the direction of my crayon whenever I'm coloring an object. I'm not worried too much. I'm going outside the lines just a smidge, but that's okay. All right, and I am going to take my crayon and I want to create those details on my tree by kind of going over those little bark lines. All right, and you can have a little fun with value here too. You know, a tree is a three-dimensional object, so you might want to take your crayon and add a little value, make it a little darker on the edges, and it gets a little lighter in the middle. You know, use a little bit of shading to make it look more realistic. All right, because my tree is a three-dimensional object. So I'm going to add a little bit of shading there. I'm going to make it just a smidge darker because I want to see that texture of my bark, but I don't want it to stand out as much as it's currently standing out. That's much better. Now I kind of just have my tree branches kind of just disappearing up into my leaves. Now this is going to be the fun part. Since it is a fall landscape, we want to make fall leaves. And that's one of the greatest parts about autumn or fall is when all of the leaves turn and change color. So I'm going to take out my orange, my yellow, and my red. And even though this tree is really close up, I am just going to kind of take my colors and start creating some of those fall colors within my tree. I'm just gonna smudge in some of those bright, bright colors. This tree, I'm gonna focus a little bit more on my reds and my oranges and just kind of creating those bright pops of color that autumn is so well known for. Going over my tree branch ever so slightly. All right, I like to make my fall trees with pops of all three colors in them, but maybe you might want to make a tree or two that, you know, only has orange and red or only has yellow and orange. All right, you don't want to make one with just one, but I like to take my colors and do all three. I like to do the yellow last because you can see I'm kind of using the yellow to connect my red and my orange together and kind of smudge everything and create just this super bright tree that is so colorful it almost looks like it's on fire. But it's not, it's just the leaves. Don't panic. All right, and I've created my bright colorful thing. And I am going to do that same thing for my other two trees. It's just this tree will not have as much detail. I also have the little hole in my tree, so I'm going to color that in black. And then my one that's farther away. Something else to note about the way that you color landscapes is that a lot of the times the objects that are closer to you are a lot brighter and darker in their color. They're a lot more bold, whereas as things get further away from you, they can be a little bit lighter. So I may actually color my background tree just a little bit lighter, or I might come back in here and press a little bit harder with my colors to really make it pop, while the one in the background will still pop with the fall colors, but it's going to be just a little bit lighter because as you look at a landscape in real life, the atmosphere kind of blurs things out and makes things look like they're fading the further away that they are from you. So I'm gonna go ahead and work on my other two trees, and then we'll talk about how to color in the rest of it. Okay, you can see here that I went ahead and just finished coloring my landscape so I could point out the different parts to you instead of you just sitting here watching me color the whole time. So my trees were already done. I decided to take a brown, and again, like I said, things that are closer to you in the picture are going to be a little bit darker, a little bit bolder, so that they pop out. So I made sure that when I was coloring my path, I made my brown a little bit darker here, and it gets a little bit lighter as it gets closer to the vanishing point. Same thing with my green. Underneath my hay bale and my pumpkins, which I decided to color in, it's a little bit darker around my trees, couple little bits of grass here and there. A little bit of grass here underneath this little tree here. My background tree is a little too far away, so I'm not going to worry about including that there, but my green got a little lighter the further away it got. I used a light blue to color in my sky. That's just what it is. I have white snow on top of my mountains, so I simply left my paper alone there. But I did use a black, or if you have a gray crayon or colored pencil, you can use a gray or a black to color in your mountains. You don't want to press down and make them super, super dark. I pressed very lightly. But on this inside mountain here, some parts where they overlap, just so you can see where the different mountains are, I make some of the parts a little bit darker and use value and kind of shade them out a little bit to help them look a little more realistic. This part I could probably blend in a little bit better right there. Perfect. All right, and then I also made sure to color in my pumpkins. I could take a black crayon and kind of add a few little details into my pumpkin there, just so you could see the different sections that I drew on my pumpkin. That makes them look a little more realistic. For my hay bale, I colored it yellow and then did some scribbles on top with the brown to make it look like the hay sticking out. And you are just going to color in your landscape. Make sure you use your fall colors, show some value, try and make it look realistic. And then you're simply going to take a picture of your landscape and send it to me so I can see it. So I can't wait to see how you color your landscapes. And when you share those with me, have fun, be creative, do your best work as always, and I will see you again next time for art class. Bye.